what I decided I want to do is talk about series that I've been reading this year, because I have been reading a lot and I keep looking at my list going, oh no, is pretty much what it is. And every time I find a new book that I want to read, it's a friggin' series. And I'm like, oh no. So especially this patchwork that you're seeing behind me is my book tracker. I still have 2 squares to add, but this is through March and it's getting a little big. And that kind of made me think about, what do I need to prioritize? So last year, I read 122 books total. It is nearly the end of June, and I've read 122 books. That's a lot. It's a lot. And I realized a lot of them seem to be coming from series this year. So I want to talk about where I'm at and figure out what I'm going to prioritize, what I'm not going to be continuing, and what is carrying over from last year that I have straight up ignored, and figure out whether I'm going to continue with that. Right. What we're going to do is, let's start with the one series that I started last year and finished this year. So I started in December, Silver Under Nightfall, and January 1st, I started Court of Wanderers, and I believe I finished it like the next day. So that series is called The Reaper by Rin Chupeco. It follows a polyamorous vampire plus vampire hunter throuple, heavily inspired by Castlevania. Really cool covers, at least I think they're cool. Enjoyable, spicy, which I don't, either way for me. But very like gory and bloody and body horror-y, which I enjoyed. And I like Rin Chupeco's writing. So they leaned heavily into like politics and things like that, and I really enjoyed it. So started and finished. Let's do started in 2023 and have not continued but do want to continue. So I read 3 Discworld books last year. I do plan on continuing. I just haven't picked up a Pratchett book because I'll talk about later. I'll talk about why later. So there's other books that the sequel came out this year that I plan on reading. But those are, things are happening with them. Okay. The Saint of Steel and The World of the White Rat. I read Paladin's Grace and Swordheart last year, and I do plan on continuing in that. It's just low priority for me. I'm kind of waiting for there to be not a long hold line at my library, or for them to be free on Audible, because that's how I read them, how I read those first 2. I do want to do like The Clockwork Boys and that series. I really enjoy T. Kingfisher, so I do want to continue in this world. And so I do plan on doing that, but it's low priority for me. The other low priority one is The Book of Dust, which is Philip Pullman's second trilogy that comes after the oh my god, what is it called? What's that series called? It's the Northern Lights and The Subtle Knife and The Amber Spyglass. What is that series as a whole called? Why can't I remember? Anyway, it's that one. It's the sequel series to that, which is actually a prequel series to that. So it's kind of low priority for me. The 3rd book is not out yet. The 2nd book is out, and I remember there was some issues that people had with it, with the way it was going. And so as much as I enjoyed the book of La Belle Sauvage, which is the 1st book, I'm putting off the Commonwealth a little bit. Then we have Who Fears Death. The prequel is a novella called She Who Knows, and that is coming out this year. I think it comes out in like the end of summer or something. So it's Nnedi Okorafor I like, but her work is very daunting because it's very dark, and I don't tend to find the characters very likable in a lot of cases, but her writing is so good. So yeah, so it's on my radar. And if I can find it in my library, I will probably pick it up. What else is still coming out? Iron Widow. So I read Iron Widow last year. The sequel is due out this year, hopefully at some point. Heavenly Tyrant. If you look at Jiren J. Zhao's Instagram or Twitter, they have talked about the issues they're having with their editor and all this stuff going on right now, and so it may or may not be coming out this year, but I have pre-ordered it, so whenever it's out, I will be reading it. Or I will be getting it, and then we'll see what happens, because that tends to happen with books I've got. Because then we can move on to ones. So the Sworn Soldier series is What Moves the Dead, and then the sequel is What Feasts at Night, and I have the sequel. I pre-ordered it. It arrived, and I had set it by my bed for 2 months, and then I moved it to my shelf downstairs, which is my, I'm going to be reading this soon. I did read the first chapter of it and was really enjoying it, so I will be planning on picking that up very soon. I am really slow with reading physical books right now with everything going on with work. So, Legends and Lattes, low on my priority. I may or may not read the sequel, which is the prequel, which is Bookshops and Bone Dust. It sounds like it'll be good. I mean, Travis Baldree writes very nice. It's a world that I like, but it's not a priority for me. That book could have been a standalone and I would have been happy. So I don't feel the pressing need to go read it. That moves us down to 2 books that I read last year, and I'm waiting. So Morgan Is My Name is the first book in the Morgan Le Fay series, and I read this because it popped up on Audible for free, and I looked it up, and the author on Twitter had said it is the feminist retelling of King Arthur, and I was like, hold on, isn't that The Mists of Avalon? Isn't The Mists of Avalon the feminist retelling of the story of King Arthur from the perspective of Morgan Le Fay? So I listened to it, and then I went, okay, so it ends here. Let me do some research on The Mists of Avalon, because I never read it. It was one that was recommended to me in high school, and I went, no, because I did that when if you tell me to read something, I struggle because my instant reaction is, no, I'm not going to read it because you told me to read it. It is the worst reaction, but it is so hard to get over it, especially if it's the wrong person. And that's kind of what happened with The Mists of Avalon. So anyway, I found out how far into The Mists of Avalon to read, and I found that my library had audiobooks, very old audiobooks, and they were split up by the parts of the book. And the first part of The Mists of Avalon, Morgan Le Fay's story, lines up almost perfectly to Morgan Is My Name, and so I read the 2 and compared them. So I do now have a copy of The Mists of Avalon, physical copy, and I'm waiting for the sequel to come out. I have it pre-ordered. It's free on Audible, and I have it in my library, but they keep pushing back the release date. It was supposed to be out in March, then it said June 13th. June 13th has passed, so I'm waiting for it to update that date again and see what's happening with that, but I do plan on reading that again and continuing with The Mists of Avalon and continue to compare the 2 because I found it very fascinating to do that. And maybe I'll talk about that when I do it for the second one, or I'll reread before they come out. What else? Okay, those are the ones that I'm waiting for them to come out. The Shades of Magic series, again, the first book was free on Audible. I listened to it, obsessed with it. My friend wants me to continue it, and I told her that I would continue it this year. So that is a little higher on my priority list, but I keep picking up other things. So I need to actually prioritize this, and maybe I will take a break after the series that I'm reading right now and try to finish it. Is that everything from last year that I need to continue? Yes. So have continued is the Mercy Thompson series. I actually technically started this in 2022 when I read the first book. This follows a coyote shifter and her alpha werewolf neighbor, and it is set in the Tri-Cities in Washington, and it has all these different other magical creatures in it. There's vampires, there's fae. We're bringing in, I'm on book 6 now, so I read book 1, and I was like, Mercy is very much a Not Like Other Girls, but the book was written in 2008, was the first book, and I was like, okay, that was peak Not Like Other Girls. And then my boyfriend was like, please just get to book 3 and decide if you'll continue, and because he really likes the series. So I was like, okay, I'll get to book 3. And so I read books 2 and 3 last year, and book 3 was very emotional, very dark, and I thought very well done. I cried like, I sobbed during that ending of that book. And the way that Patricia Briggs handled the topics that she was talking about made me want to continue with the series. And so I've read books 4, 5, and 6 this year so far. I plan on picking up a couple more. I seem to be doing one like every other month. And they're very easy to read. They're silly little paranormal romances with a Scooby-Doo mystery. And I find that really fun. It's all closed door romance, which is, like I said, I can take it or leave it with the smut. I really don't care. So I don't mind the closed door. But if you're looking for like spicy paranormal romance, this is not it. I have heard that as the books go on, there's more, because I think there's like 18 of these books. There are so many of these books. And there's a series that like branched off of them, but I'm really enjoying them. I find them to be creative and enough suspense, but they're popcorn books. You can just kind of read them while you're like, they're just so quick to read. So, and I find them, so far this year, when I've been struggling to read, my boyfriend's like, why don't you grab one of the Mercy Thompson books? Because he has most of them. And they're almost always available on Libby. So if he doesn't have it, I pick it up on Libby. And they tend to pull me out of a reading slump because they're just consumable. So that's last year's that is carrying over. What I don't want to continue, I will not be continuing with A Study in Drowning, which they just announced that there will be a sequel for that. That book did not work for me. I know it really worked for a lot of people. I just don't think Ava Reed is the writer for me. Ava Reed's writing is stunning. Beautiful prose, amazing scene setting. But the stories are not working for me. I may give the Macbeth book, the like Lady Macbeth book, whatever it is, a try, because I feel like Ava maybe needs a third try from me. Maybe I'll do like a Books and Lala inspired, giving authors a third chance, like final chance, 3 strikes you're out, like, and do a trying again with a couple of different authors. And we'll see. But yeah, I just don't think it's going to be for me, and I'm just going to not enjoy it, and then I'm going to be a hater, and it's going to waste my time. Last one I will not be continuing with is The Fourth Wing, The Empyrean. Unless it is my turn to take the arrow to the knee and read, because a mutual on Instagram, she did Iron Flame right after I did, and she like put it all up in her stories and did it as like a hate read and stuff, and she was like, I cannot do this again. So if you guys want me to do any more of these books, somebody needs to take the mantle for the next one. So unless I am the mantle for the next one, which is January 2025, so I don't have to worry about it this year, I will not be continuing. The one that I'm on the fence about is God Killer. It's the Fallen Gods series. I may or may not read the second book. There's a very long hold at my library. I might throw myself on it. But I did not enjoy the first book. The thing is, I can see where there are plot lines that could be maybe turned around, and the book could do better. Hannah Kaner, or I don't know how Hannah's last name is pronounced, is a debut author, and so I feel like I should maybe give the next book a chance, because I did see things that could work in it. I just felt the story was very unpolished. I wasn't a big fan of Kissin. And the story just, I don't know. So I may or may not give the second book a chance, and just see how I feel about it, but it's going to be low on my priority list. So that moves us into 2024, and let's just continue with what I will not be continuing with. We'll just roll that in. So there's a few series that I've started this year that I have tagged as series DNF. I'm not going to talk about the manga and graphic novel series, because I have a few. One of the first few books I read this year was Fathom Folk. This is going to be a series. I cannot remember what the series is called. It's the Drowned something. I have a whole video on how disappointed I was in Fathom Folk. It's one of the more popular videos on my channel. Give it a watch if you're interested in why I didn't like it. But it did not work for me. Again, though, debut author, so maybe I should give the next one a chance. But I don't think it's due out for a little while, so I have some time to decide. And then The Reptilian Corp, another one of my my most hated book of this year, I think, because it could have been just a fun, silly little thing, and it was awful. I'm so mad. And dude, bro, sci-fi. So Domesticating Dragons is the book, Reptilian Corp is the series. I will not be continuing with that. I'm not even going to touch it. I think there's like 2 other books. The Chronicles of Castellane, which is the Cassandra Clare Swordcatcher series, put me into a reading slump. It was not badly written. Cassandra Clare can write a story that goes. I read it fairly quick considering the length of the book, and considering how upset I was with it. But I have a video on it, and also these are highlighted in my haters, in my Hi, I'm a Hater book video. So then the other one I won't be continuing is one I was on my recommended sci-fi. So I asked last year on Instagram at the end of the year, hey, recommend me some sci-fi. Here's some sci-fi that I've liked. I'm trying to read more. One of the recommendations, I think people did not look at what I said I had liked, and they just recommended me what they liked. So one of the ones that I got recommended was Hunt the Stars, which is a sci-fi romance. It's kind of like a romantasy, but if it was sci-fi, and I can see it working for people. I didn't hate it, but it was not something that I'm interested in continuing. It is very romance heavy with some low sci-fi, some soft sci-fi elements. I enjoy soft sci-fi. I don't really need to know how everything works in the world. I'm fine with us just chilling in space, right? Star Wars is very soft science, okay? We don't know how shit works. Shit doesn't work the way that it should work. It's just space cowboys. And so it kind of felt a little bit like it was inspired by Firefly in some aspects, but then we had the romance elements, and I would have been totally cool with like a Firefly type thing. I love Firefly. But the plot line didn't do it for me. The romance was basically, they ended up with each other because one was really hot, like, because the dude was really hot. He was just a really hot alien. So if that sounds interesting to you, maybe give it a go. I listened to the audio. The audio was not done poorly. It was good. Bro, it was not for me. Series I'm planning on continuing that are low on my priority list. The Lies of the Ajungo is the first book, and then the second book is the Truth of the Aleki, I think, or something like that. This one. And I really do want to continue this, but again, it's low on my priority list. It's a novella series, so it'll be good for like when I'm in the middle of, I don't know what I want, and I can just run to the library and grab it. They're really good. The first one was only like 85 pages or something like that. And I really, really enjoyed it. So I recommend them if you're looking for something that is not medieval fantasy. This is based in, I think it was North Africa. So this is African desert based, inspired. And if you like Nnedi Okorafor but want something not as dark, this might be something that you might enjoy, because we do get just similar types of topics that she likes to talk, that she tends to use. I think societal kind of class and society and race issues set in an African-inspired fantasy, but again, not as dark as she tends to go in some of her stuff, and also short. So I think if you liked Binti, you might like this one. The Fractured Fables, which is the Alex E. Harrow kind of twists on, she says in the author's note that she wanted to Spider-Verse a fairy tale, and that is what these are. So I read A Spindle Splintered. That's the Sleeping Beauty one. I think the next one is Snow White. So it's like a mirrored something, and so that's on my list, but again, low priority, just because I'm not aching to go read it. It was good, but I'm not like, oh my god, I gotta read the next one. Low in my priority. What else? Skyward. So I really liked Skyward, but it's just kind of low on my priority list. It's not screaming my name, and that is probably because right now I'm just stuck in Robin Hobb. So I will return to them. I did like Skyward, so I do plan on reading the rest of them. The Desert Magician duology is Nnedi Okorafor's YA sci-fi. series that this is Shadow Speakers, the first one. So there is a second book. It's just a duology. I would like to continue it, but again, it's low on my priority list at the moment. Dowry of Blood. So the next one is Education and Malice. And I've had this book, okay, so I got it from my library on Libby, ended up not getting to it in time, and so it got returned. And then I got it physically from the library and read the first chapter and went, I'm not feeling this right now, and returned it. So it seems to be dropping on the priority list, but I do want to read it. I think I've seen some mixed reviews and I'm a little bit worried, and the first chapter didn't like grip me the way that I was hoping it would. So maybe I'll grab it on audio. Because sometimes when things don't grip me physically, the audio will work for me. So maybe I'll grab it on audio, and because I did a Dowry and Blood on audio, so maybe this one will work. So the Murderbot books, I've read the first 4, and I do plan on continuing. The next one's a little bit longer, so I'm just kind of, and it's not free on Audible, so I'm just kind of waiting. So I'm enjoying them a lot. I view them as like little one-shots with a recurring character. And they're really enjoyable when I just need something kind of light. Jade City. So Jade City is a little higher on my priority, but I picked up Jade 4, read the first chapter, and read the first 3 chapters, and I kept falling asleep. I was just way too tired, so I need to wait for like things to calm down in my life, and then I can get back to it, because the writing style is not gripping in the very beginning. It takes a little bit to get into the plot, at least in Jade City it did. So I do plan on continuing. These are an urban fantasy inspired by Asian culture, and the first one was really good. So I do want to continue this. This is a little higher up on my priority list. Then, okay, the Singing Hills Saga. I listened last month to the first 3, and I plan on continuing. I think I have a holdout on the next one, the Mammoths at the Gate. I did them on audio, and I plan on continuing them. They're short little novellas following a cleric who is recording stories of the people around them. And I find them just light and enjoyable. I think I've seen some things lately with some people who didn't like them. I think if you listen to them, they're nice. They're just nice, and I enjoy it. Speaking of nice, I just recently read Psalm for the Wild Built, and it like put a little band-aid on a hole in my academic soul, and I plan on continuing with the next book. I just need to see if my library has it, and probably will do that in the next month, because it's just nice. And then I read the first book of the Lord of the Rings this year, reread it, and I never continued with the series, so I do plan on continuing with the Lord of the Rings and reading the rest of the series, and probably The Hobbit too. That's a little higher up on my priority list, but I think I'm probably going to save them until like the winter, when things slow down a little bit for me, or back September, October. I'll be driving a lot again for work, and I'll probably pick them up then. Because that gets me into the one I am in right now, is the Liveship Traders series. I am obsessed. I'm halfway through Ship of Destiny, which is the last book in the trilogy, and then I have the paperback copies of the Tawny Man, which is the next trilogy in this world. It's the series. So, okay, I'm following the Fits along, and this is by Leanne from Literary Diversions. My brain today. This is her order, is to read the Farseer trilogy, which is the Assassin's Apprentice series, then to read the Liveship Traders series, then the Tawny Man, then the Rainwild Chronicles, and then the Fitz and the Fool. And I think that's all of them. With like, there's some novellas or some like short story or novella or something collections in December as well. So she has it planned out for 2 years to read them all, and so I have gotten way far ahead because I am obsessed. So this is what inspired me. This is the order I'm reading them in. So I have the Tawny Man books. I found them used, and I will be reading them physically, because the audios are not freely available. My library does not have the audios for them. So I will be reading them physically, and so I plan that's going to slow me down. So either that or I'm going to use credits. I have to figure out what I'm going to do. But that feeds me into trilogy series that I have finished this year. I have actually finished 4 plus Court of Wanderers. So I finished 5 series this year. I started and finished Phaedra's trilogy, which is Kushiel's Dart, Kushiel's Chosen, and Kushiel's Avatar by Jacqueline Carey. These were written in the late 90s. They are a high fantasy, epic high fantasy book that follows a high-end courtesan, and she ends up being a spy, and it's so good. It's so good. And it was like my obsession. I could only do one a month though, because they're very intense. A lot happens. There is some like, you need to look at the content warnings. I finally read these because my boyfriend is obsessed with them, and he was like, please read these books. Like, he's been asking me since we got together, but he kept describing them poorly to me, and I was like, it doesn't sound good. And then I saw Beautifully Bookish Bethany say that she read Kushiel's Avatar and she really liked it, and she kind of explained it a little bit better, and I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. It was free on Audible, and I was like, all right. And then I was hooked. So I plowed through the rest of them. And then I did the Farseer trilogy. Again, I did these on audio as well. Audio and high fantasy for me seems to work really well when you're getting like a lot of like family trees and world history dumped on you. It works for me better to have somebody tell it to me. Otherwise, I just get distracted and I don't really care. But if you're telling it to me, I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. It's very weird. And then I read Into the Drowning Deep and Rolling in the Deep, so that is technically a duology that's done. And then I read the Green Hollow duology, which I don't see talked about a lot on here, but I really enjoyed. It's an Achillean folk fantasy, like folktale fantasy, and the first one follows this older man who lives alone in the woods, and he has some connection to the Fae realm, kind of, and this younger man comes into his woods and tries to befriend him, and then shit starts to happen. And then the sequel follows the same characters, and it was really enjoyable. I really liked the audio was really good. It's short, it's novellas, and so I finished them in like a couple hours. So I really recommend those. So, priorities. Okay, let's talk about priorities for series. So, I think in the next 3 months, I'll be finishing the Liveship Traders and then crying because it's over. And I'm already putting it off. Like, right, I've got like 8 hours left on this audiobook and I am putting it off. I watched like Unsolved Mysteries for 4 hours today instead of listening to the book. The choices that I make sometimes. It's like how the last 2 episodes of The Good Place have been sitting on my list on Netflix for me to watch. And I haven't watched it because I don't want it to end. So I've just ignored it for like 3 years. Anyway, so priorities I think are going to be The Shades of Magic, because I told my friend I would read them. Shades of Magic. I'm going to start the Prior of the Orange Tree in probably July or August. I'm going to start it. It is a big book and I have it physically, so I'm planning on doing that. That is a duology. And then I will be doing the Tawny Man. Those are probably my priorities. And then in there I'll probably slot in the Greenbone Saga, which is the Jade City books. And then I will probably also put in a couple more Mercy books and a couple Discworld books. Those are probably what I'm going to be doing, but I don't have a direct plan except for to continue living in Robin Hobb's head for the rest of the summer. So the Tawny Man books are physical books. They're going to take me a little bit longer. This is the Fool's Errand. Fool's Errand, I think, is the first book, and I can't remember the other 2. Fool's Fate, maybe, and I can't remember. But that also might be the ones from the last series. And then I do have the first 2 books in the Rainwild Chronicles that I bought physically that I found used. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. I am obsessed with Liveship Traders. So, if there's something on this list that you think that I said I was not going to continue, and you think I should continue, tell me. If you want to see me hate read the sequel to Godkiller, please let me know. Or if you love it and you don't want me to hate on it, then tell me not to read it. Give me your opinion. And yeah, that's where I'm at. So I am going to go and work on this a little bit, and I will see you soon.